I just did a video talking about the 5 reasons that Waymo is better than Uber and Lyft. And here's the thing, Waymo is awesome, but it's not perfect. And in this video, on the flip side, I'm going to talk about the 5 reasons why Uber and Lyft is better than Waymo. Number 1, the social aspect. This is a big one. I love talking to people. I'm naturally an extrovert. Probably no surprise to any of you. And the thing is this, when you get into an Uber or Lyft, most drivers who've been driving for a while get it. Some people get in, they're very talkative, you have a conversation. Other people get in, I remember this a lot when I used to drive, get in, they go, hey, good morning. They go right to their phone. They don't want to talk. And here's the thing, in an Uber or Lyft, you have the option. Sometimes for me, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really in a talkative mood. I get in the Uber or Lyft, I go right to my phone, the driver gets it. They're like, hey, they just want a quiet ride, leave the radio on, that's it. In other situations though, I am in a talkative mood. The thing with the Waymo is when you get in it, you're stuck with no social interaction. At least with an Uber or Lyft, I have the option. Like there's some times during the ride where maybe at first I wasn't talkative, but then I happen to be talkative randomly. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm in the mood for a conversation. Or let's say I'm traveling. That's one of my favorite things to do. Like say I'm traveling, I get an Uber or Lyft from the airport to my hotel or Airbnb or wherever I'm staying. I get to have a conversation. I'm like, hey, what's your favorite restaurants? What are the things I should check out? What are the tourist traps that I definitely should avoid? As you can imagine, when you're in an Uber or Lyft, you have the ability, if you want, it's up to you. You have the option, I think is a better word, to have a social interaction, to have a conversation with an actual person. And as we all know in this day and age, there's less and less human interaction happening all the time with social media, with the way everyone's on their phone. And the things with the Waymo, when you get in it, you can't have any social interaction whatsoever. Number 2, recording. This is actually a pretty big one. And that is this. For most Uber and Lyft drivers, they have a dash cam, right? They have a dash cam, and I suggest to all my Uber and Lyft drivers, one of my biggest pieces of advice, have a dash cam, right? Just in case something happens externally outside your vehicle, you get into an accident, you have the footage and everything, but also internally. You never know what could happen inside the vehicle. Waymo has this as well. But here is the big issue. Alphabet, who owns Google and all these other companies, owns Waymo. So as you can imagine, Waymo is run by one of the biggest companies in the world. And here's the thing, let me ask you this. Would you rather your footage, your recording, videos of you have the ability to be accessed by an Uber and Lyft driver who's just having their dash cam up there, probably doesn't care about it. They're like, hey, I just have this footage in case I have to use it. It's more like insurance, right? I say this to a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers. You have the dash cam footage there just in case. Just in case, someone needs to use it. Let's say you have to use it. Hopefully you never have to, but it's there. Would you rather your footage be held by an Uber Lyft driver who probably is never going to use it unless they have to, like I just said, or one of the biggest companies in the world? And here's the way it works with Waymo in case you didn't know, which again, bit vague, bit ambiguous, I'm going to be honest, in this sense. The way it works is they can record, and they do record, everything that's happening in the ride. The whole aspect of privacy, I put that in quotation marks, is a bit of an illusion when it comes to a Waymo. Everybody, in terms of like their entire staff, can see what you're doing in the Waymo. Keep that in mind. You're live on camera. Think of it like a live stream. They're seeing what you're doing. The microphone is muted. Again, I put that in quotation marks. They can't hear what you say. However, they can unmute the microphone if they want to. And like saying, this happened to me. I remember I was with friends in a Waymo. We were driving, and all of a sudden we heard like a boom, like a noise. And they go, hey, this is Tom from Waymo Support. We were looking at the video and watching you guys. We saw that the person in the back with the white shirt does not have their seatbelt on. Could you put your seatbelt on? And he was like, oh yeah, sorry. So that can happen, right? That can actually happen. And then they muted the microphone, back again. But here's the thing. You're going to tell me that one of the biggest companies in the world doesn't record the audio as well, that they keep it muted? As someone who used to be a former computer programmer, I just don't trust it, right? So for me, the whole aspect of like one of the biggest companies in the world having recordings with potentially audio and video of me or anybody else in a Waymo, what are they going to do with that footage? How are they going to use it? To me, that's a bit more, unsettling, if that's the right word, compared to a Joe Schmo, regular person having some of the footage in their car and they're just having it there just in case. They don't really care about the dash cam footage. It's only there if they need to actually use it. Number 3, safety. Now, this one is interesting because it's a bit of a bittersweet situation because I talked about this in the previous video. Though when it comes to Waymos, it has been shown, and this is true, statistically speaking, you are safer in some ways being in a Waymo when it comes to accidents. So think of the vehicle moving. There's less accidents when it comes to Waymo versus human drivers, or let's say Uber and Lyft drivers, or rideshare drivers, taxi drivers, etc. In addition, there's less injuries that happen even when accidents do happen. So basically, it is safer in terms of, getting into an accident, injuries from accidents, etc., being in a Waymo than when it comes to an Uber driver, Lyft driver, rideshare driver, etc. That being said, Waymo is far from perfect. And in some cases, I think Waymo is safer than Uber and Lyft. In other cases, it's not. Remember, it's still an AI. And as you can imagine, there are situations, they're starting to go more and more viral. Like say one situation that went viral, there was a video of it, of two guys who went in front of a Waymo. And the Waymo says, oh, people in front of me, I'm not going to move, right? That's the way the AI or the algorithm or the robot, the self-driving car thought. But these two guys kept saying these girls like, hey, let me get your number. Let me get your number. And the car would not move. The Waymo refused to go forward. And the girl, of course, videotaped it and put it online as she should have. But as you can imagine, that's a very unsettling, incredibly unsafe situation to be in that all someone has to do is stand in front of a Waymo like this, and now the Waymo will not move. That is very unfortunate. And you've seen these situations that a normal Uber and Lyft driver would be like, hey, get out of my way. Maybe they go around them. They would do more a on-the-spot, creative approach to it. And granted, Waymo is getting better. So don't get me wrong. Waymo is getting better. But as you can imagine, it's still an algorithm. It's still operating by a certain amount of formulas and certain structure. And when it comes to a human, you can improvise on the fly. God forbid, like say somebody, you're in a Waymo, runs up to the Waymo and tries getting in the car and something goes wrong. With an Uber and Lyft driver, they know how to react to it, on the spot to like get rid of the person. Maybe they do something along those lines. With a Waymo, if like you're in it by yourself as well, that could be an issue. Now, granted, safety is, I think, a bit of a tricky thing the way you look at it. Because like I said, in some situations, some people say, hey, I'm afraid of my Uber and Lyft driver themselves. I talked about this where they're like, hey, I'm in the Waymo. At least if I'm drunk at 3 a.m. on a Friday or Saturday night, I don't have to worry about the Uber and Lyft driver getting a little creepy or something happening if I'm under the influence. On the other end, though, you are in that Waymo by yourself, and if something happens to that Waymo, and there's even been YouTubers, for example, and, computer programmers and, like, tech people in a good way, let me put this in a good way, who've shown how to hack the Waymo algorithm. Obviously, I don't know if they do post it online, but they show how easy it is to fool it. And like I said, if all somebody has to do to compromise your safety is stand in front of the Waymo, that is a huge issue. We've seen all these videos going viral of, situations where the Waymo was acting under a certain amount of rules. Anything outside of those rules, it doesn't really know what to do, as opposed to an Uber driver or Lyft driver who, in that moment, when it comes to your safety, and of course their safety, knows how to improvise in an instant. Number 4, flexibility. This is a bit of an issue with Waymo that's kind of annoying. When it comes to an Uber driver and a Lyft driver, as you can imagine, typically for most rides, you go from point A to point B. They pick you up, boom, they drop you off. But the thing is, when it comes to Waymo, you're kind of at the mercy to the way the Waymo does its thing. So for example, just even take the pickup. If I order an Uber Lyft, and let's say I'm on a corner intersection, for example, I can see the Uber and Lyft driver saying, hey, I'm across the street, can you come here? Or hey, can you actually go around the block? The pickup location's here, but I'm actually here, right? I'm here around the corner. With a Waymo, wherever the Waymo ends up, you have to go there. You have to walk there, right? So you're kind of inflexible when it comes to the pickup location. With an Uber driver and a Lyft driver, you have a bit of a leeway because, hey, do you mind pulling up here? Do you mind doing this? Do you mind doing that? In addition, take the ride itself. Like say, hey, man, it's taking you on the highway, take the back roads. Or take this one street, take that street. With the Waymo, you're kind of stuck with the Waymo, the direction of the GPS addresses the way the Waymo wants to go. You're kind of stuck with the route that the Waymo has. Took me a while to say that for a second. But yeah, the route that the Waymo has. With an Uber driver and a Lyft driver, you have more flexibility. In addition, like say I'm like, hey, I'm super thirsty. Do you mind if we stop at the 7-Eleven real quick? I want to grab a Gatorade. Or hey, do you mind pulling up here? I actually have to grab this real quick. I'll be back in 5 minutes. With a Waymo, you can't really do that. Now, granted, I could see in the future maybe Waymo adding an extra stop feature where you could add a stop and maybe add a pause for that stop, being like, hey, like here's a timer, here's a 10-minute timer for this one stop, and they still charge you. I could see that being a feature that gets added, don't get me wrong, but it's still kind of annoying, I think, when it comes to Waymo, that there's all these like rigid things in place that are very inflexible. Very inflexible. When it comes to an Uber driver and a Lyft driver, it's just so convenient, so easy to just verbally say, hey, do I need this? Hey, do you mind pulling off here for 1 second? I need to do this. It's very flexible when it comes to an Uber Lyft driver, and a lot of people don't know this. When it comes to the app, the addresses are actually mere suggestions. Uber and Lyft, in a sense, doesn't really care about the exact pickup and drop-off location. They just track the mileage, how long in the car, and the base fare, and a few other things. That's it. So I could get an Uber or Lyft and just direct them where to go, and they're still going to pay the Uber and Lyft driver the amount they should be paid. So when it comes to Uber and Lyft, it's not like Waymo. It's like very strict, like point A, point B, blah, blah, blah. Waymo's very inflexible in that regard. When it comes to Uber and Lyft, it's very flexible. As like say something happens on the fly, if I need to stop somewhere, if like say I need to go back home to pick something up, if I want to take a different route, it's very flexible with an Uber and Lyft. Number 5, cheaper. So they just did a huge study. I have talked about this in a few videos already by OE, who does like pricing statistics and whatnot. Waymo is statistically speaking more expensive than Uber and Lyft. The way it typically works for most areas is Waymo, then Uber, then Lyft. So if you're on a budget, not always, but typically Lyft is going to be cheaper. However, most people in this day and age pull up Lyft, they pull up Uber, whichever one's cheaper, they typically take that one. That's the way most people operate. And I will say this, I have talked about this where I have noticed in the past year, and like I said, I took my first Waymo about a year ago, actually, almost at the time of this video. Waymo has gotten cheaper and cheaper. And I'd say about 30% of the time, maybe less, it's tough to say, maybe between 3 to 4 times out of every time. Let's say I go to take a ride share. I pull up Uber, pull up Lyft, and then I pull up Waymo. About 3 to 4 times out of 10, I'd say Waymo is cheaper. So don't get me wrong. Waymo has been getting cheaper over the past year, and sometimes it is actually cheaper than taking a rideshare vehicle. But at the end of the day, more times than not, and most of the time, Waymo is more expensive. And now, a bonus point why Uber and Lyft is better than Waymo is ordering it. First off, when it comes to right now, the time of this video, you cannot get a Waymo XL. Meaning, if I say have 5 people with me, I can't get into the Waymo. Remember, when it comes to Waymo, in case you didn't know, no one can sit in the driver's seat. And like I said too, when it comes to the Waymo, they're watching you. And this happens all the time. People try to squeeze in 5 people, like, hey, like 4 in the back, 1 up front. On the passenger seat, they start driving. Somebody on the Waymo support team sees them. They pull the car over and say, hey, sorry, you all have to get out. Too many people are in the car. You can only have maximum of 4 people in a Waymo. So when it comes to ordering it, you have way less features. You're stuck with that vehicle. And right now, again, at the time of this video, it's only the Jaguar I-Pace. Now, they might switch it up. It could be possible. I know that I did a video about this. I saw this kind of new version. It's the Zeekr vehicle. It looks like an XL. So Waymo XL could be a thing in the future. Actually, more likely than not, it will be a thing. But at least right now, it is not. So you have way less features. If, let's say, you want to take a luxury vehicle, I know some people love taking Uber Black, Lyft Black, Uber Lux, Lyft Lux. You can't do that with a Waymo. And then another thing, and this is a big one, is the wait time. So when it comes to Uber and Lyft, if let's say I'm going out, or let's say I'm going to the airport or whatever, I go to order it, it's there within a minute. If I need a ride right then, I can do it. With Waymo, not the case. You have to be prepared to wait a good amount of time. Now, wait times with Waymo might go down, but if anything, I'm going to be honest. In my experience, taking Waymos, Ubers, and Lyfts, the wait time for Waymo has actually gotten worse. I think probably because it's gotten more popular, a lot more people are ordering Waymos. So it's not uncommon if, like, say, I go to order Waymo, it says, hey, sorry, it's busy right now. You're going to have to wait at least 15 minutes. And let's say if I'm in a rush, like say if I'm in a hurry, in some situations, I might be like, yeah, no big deal. I'll wait an extra 15 minutes. But in most cases, I'm like, wait, why wait longer to spend more money when I can have a ride get here in a few minutes that's cheaper than a Waymo? And now a second bonus point, the rare second bonus point on a video. Very rarely do I ever do 2 bonus points, but this is a big one. And that is the human aspect when it comes to the payment. This is something that I genuinely see becoming a thing even now, actually in 2025, halfway through the year, when it comes to humans versus AI. Not even just with Waymo and Uber and Lyft and ride sharing and taxis and transportation, but just in general life. And that is you're seeing this issue happening a lot with AI, with, AI taking over a lot of people's jobs, automation, robots. This is becoming a huge issue for a lot of industries. I was even seeing, as a mini side note, but very relevant for right now, that a lot of people are now saying, like, back in the day, even just a few years ago, which is crazy to say, having a computer programming degree, a coding degree, was one of the best degrees you could have. Now I've been seeing reports of people going away from that because, like, wait a minute, AI is going to take over coding pretty fast. If anything, in the future, that may be one of the least useful degrees, which is crazy how things switch up in just 5 or 10 years, in just half a decade or a decade, right? And this one thing I want to say, that when it comes to Waymo versus an Uber and Lyft, this is something that I think is an advantage for Uber and Lyft, is the fact of paying a human driver. That by me ordering that Uber and Lyft, yes, it is inevitable. It is capitalism, right? It is capitalism where, yes, Uber and Lyft, these massive companies, especially Uber being substantially bigger than Lyft, yes, I am putting money in their pocket. Yes, there's no way I can avoid that. I am supporting capitalism, if I'd word it like that, in that way, but at least I'm employing a human. If you think about it, Uber and Lyft, for better or for worse, I've roasted Uber and Lyft pretty hard on this channel, and don't get me wrong, Uber and Lyft is not perfect. There's a lot of messed up stuff they do, but there's a lot of awesome stuff they do. And if you think about it, there have been millions of jobs created by Uber and Lyft. As much as rideshare drivers sometimes like to bash Uber and Lyft, they've allowed so many people to have an extra job, have it be their main job, be able to put food on the table, be able to make side cash. Well, let's say when things are tight. If you think about the barrier to entry to being an Uber and Lyft driver is so little, all these, I've talked a lot about the benefits of being a driver on this channel, the instant cash outs, so much more. There's a lot of benefits to being a driver. And there is something I will say that for me, there is sometimes I'm like, hey, you know what? It is kind of nice if, like, say, I'm ordering an Uber, I'm ordering a Lyft, as opposed to Waymo. Like, say if I'm choosing an Uber Lyft over Waymo, it is kind of nice to be like, hey, you know what? I'm supporting a human. If I were like that, I'm supporting a fellow human. I'm allowing this guy or this girl to make ends meet, to put food on their table, and that's kind of awesome. As for getting a Waymo, which I'm really not supporting anybody, I'm just supporting the company. Now, granted, I will say this, yes, Waymo does have a staff. Of course, they have an engineering team behind it. They also have people who are, like I said, who watch the live streams, if I word it like that, and the recordings and the tapings of all the Waymo. So yes, in a sense, if I'd have to look at it super critically, yes, in a sense, I am kind of supporting some kind of payroll when it comes to humans. If, like, say, I get a Waymo because there are people there watching the screens, think about almost like a security monitor of all the Waymos. But when it comes to an Uber and Lyft driver, I feel like I'm supporting a genuine homie, if I'd like that, a genuine homie who's like, hey, man, I'm just trying to drive on a Friday night or Saturday night or Monday through Friday or whenever they drive. I'm trying to drive right now because I need to make ends meet. I'm trying to save up for this. I'm trying to pay off student loans. And there is this kind of that human thing of, let me ask you, would you rather pay money, assuming all things equal, would you rather pay money and know it's going to a human's pocket, or pay money and know it's going to an AI's pocket, but not really an AI's pocket, just the company that owns the AI? Which one would you rather want? There is something knowing that you're supporting, I think, fellow human, if I were like that, when it comes to ordering an Uber and Lyft.